IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu apologizes in court for recent attacks on Justice Nyako. Lawyers. Nnamdi Kanu, leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra (IPOB), has issued apologies for his previous courtroom outbursts directed at Justice Binta Nyako and other legal professionals involved in his trial. During a recent court session presided over by Justice James Omotosho, Kanu's new lead counsel, Kanu Agabisan, conveyed these apologies on his behalf. Kanu expressed regret for his actions and sought forgiveness from Justice Nyako, Chief Adeboyega Awomolo-san, and his former legal team led by Alo Ejimako. He acknowledged that his anger led to unjust attacks and promised to maintain good conduct throughout the remainder of his trial. The development comes as Kanu's trial begins anew under Justice Omotosho following previous recusal and delays. The trial has been rescheduled with dates set for April 29th, May 2nd, and May 6th. Court bars INEC from accepting processing fictitious petition to recall Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. The Federal High Court in Lokoja has issued an interim injunction restraining the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) from accepting or acting upon petitions containing fictitious signatures aimed at initiating a recall process against Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, who represents Kogi Central Senatorial District. The injunction was granted by Justice Isa H. Dashen following an expert motion filed by 5 constituents: Anebe Jacob Ugirima, John Adebisi, Musa Siaka Adeila, Honorable Ahmed Usman, and Malik Yahya. These individuals alleged that certain groups were compiling fake signatures to falsely represent the will of the constituents in recalling Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan. This legal action comes amid heightened political tensions as Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan had recently accused Senate President Godswill Akpabio of sexual harassment. Following her allegations, she faced a 6-month suspension from the Senate for what was described as unruly and disruptive behavior during an unrelated incident. Women's rights groups have condemned her suspension, leading to protests under the banner "We Are All Natasha," highlighting ongoing issues of gender inequality in Nigerian politics. The court decision to restrain INEC underscores concerns about the authenticity of the recall petitions and reflects the broader political struggle surrounding Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan's tenure. The case has been adjourned to May 6, 2025 for further proceedings. NNPC probes alleged data breaches by TikTok Truecaller. The Nigerian Data Protection Commission (NNPC) has initiated investigations into TikTok and Truecaller over alleged data privacy breaches, aiming to ensure their compliance with the Nigerian Data Protection Act (NDPA). Investigation details. Scope: the NNPC is scrutinizing the data processing practices of TikTok and Truecaller to assess their adherence to Nigerian data protection laws. Approach: the Commission favors a remediation strategy, offering organizations the opportunity to correct identified lapses before considering stricter enforcement actions. Compliance landscape: initially, only 4% of organizations complied with data protection regulations. Through increased enforcement and stakeholder engagement, compliance has risen to over 55%. Regulatory developments. New directive: the NNPC introduced the Nigerian Data Protection Act General Application and Implementation Directive (NDP Act GAID), offering comprehensive guidelines for data controllers and processors to align with the law. Grievance mechanism: the standard notice to address grievance (SNAG) enables individuals to directly seek remedial action from data controllers and processors without initially involving the Commission, empowering Nigerians to actively participate in enforcing data protection laws. Implementation timeline: the full implementation of the directive is set for September 2025, with a 6-month transition period for organizations. Provisions related to fees will take effect from January 2026. The NNPC remains committed to providing guidance and capacity building programs to foster a culture of data privacy and protection in Nigeria. Supreme Court asked PDP to decide its national secretary. The Supreme Court ruled on Friday that no court has the authority to determine who holds leadership positions in a political party. As a result, the court overturned the previous rulings of both the Court of Appeal and the Federal High Court, which had removed Senator Samuel Anyanwu from his position as the National Secretary of the People's Democratic Party (PDP). However, the Supreme Court also rejected Anyanwu's request to be reinstated as National Secretary. A 5-member panel of the court unanimously agreed that determining the PDP's national secretary is an internal party matter and not subject to judicial review. Justice Jamilu Tuku, who delivered the lead judgment, struck out the October 2024 ruling of the trial court and set aside the Court of Appeal's majority decision from December 2024, which had upheld Anyanwu's removal. Instead, the Supreme Court affirmed the minority judgment of the appellate court delivered by Justice Ekenem, which had dismissed the trial court ruling due to lack of jurisdiction. Furthermore, the court ruled that the plaintiff, Anyanwu Emmanuel, who initiated the case, lacked the legal standing to do so he failed to prove how the appointment of the PDP's national secretary affected him. The Supreme Court had previously reserved its judgment on March 10 after hearing arguments from Anyanwu's counsel, Kingsley Ijemanze San and Chief Paul Erokoro San, who represented Anyanwu Emmanuel. Anyanwu was initially removed from his position after resigning to contest the Imo State governorship election, which he lost. He later sued the PDP leadership for preventing him from reclaiming his role as national secretary. He argued that since he was unsuccessful in the 2023 governorship election, he should be allowed to return to his previous position. However, Chief Paul Erokoro, representing Anyanwu Emmanuel, argued that Anyanwu's request violated the PDP's constitution. He stated that since Anyanwu had resigned to contest another election, he could not return to his former office. The PDP and Ambassador Ilya Damagun, the second and third respondent, did not take a stance in the case, but the fourth respondent, Ali Odeifa, opposed Anyanwu's attempt to return as national secretary. Through his counsel, Okudili Anozie, Odeifa urged the Supreme Court to dismiss the suit, calling it baseless and without merit. Previously, in the Federal High Court and the Court of Appeal in Enugu had both ruled against Anyanwu, removing him from his position. In December 2024, the Court of Appeal upheld the High Court's decision and recognized Chief Sunday Ude Okoye as the legitimate national secretary of the PDP. In his late judgment, delivered by Justice Ridwan Abdullahi, the Court of Appeal deemed Anyanwu's appeal invalid and lacking merit. It ruled that Anyanwu had violated the PDP's constitution by attempting to reclaim the national secretary position after contesting the 2024 Imo governorship election as the party's candidate. Unhappy with the ruling, Anyanwu took his case to the Supreme Court, seeking to overturn the lower court decision and be reinstated as the PDP's national secretary. Fuel price: why we will dump Dangote Refinery for NNPC imports, says PETROAN. The Petroleum Products Retail Outlet Owners Association of Nigeria (PETROAN) has expressed concerns over Dangote Refinery's recent decision to suspend fuel sales in the local naira currency, opting instead for transactions in US dollars. This shift has prompted PETROAN to consider sourcing petroleum products from the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited (NNPC) and other importers. Billy Gile Harris, the national president of PETROAN, highlighted that this move could adversely affect local fuel marketers and consumers, potentially leading to increased fuel prices and inflation. He emphasized that if Dangote Refinery insists on dollar-denominated transactions, PETROAN members might be compelled to seek alternatives to ensure a stable and affordable fuel supply for Nigerians. The Dangote Refinery decision stems from challenges in obtaining sufficient crude oil volumes under a 6-month government agreement that allowed payment in naira. This agreement, initiated in October, aimed to reduce petrol prices and decrease reliance on gasoline imports. However, the refinery has yet to receive the agreed crude volumes, prompting the shift to dollar transactions. In response to this development, a federal government panel is scheduled to reconvene to address the naira for crude crisis. The panel aims to find solutions that will ensure a steady supply of crude to domestic refiners, including Dangote Refinery, and maintain fuel availability for consumers. PETROAN's stance underscores the potential impact of Dangote Refinery's policy change on Nigeria's downstream petroleum sector and the broader economy. The association's consideration to pivot towards NNPC and other importers reflects a commitment to safeguarding the interests of fuel marketers and consumers amidst evolving industry dynamics. NAFDAC destroys 1 trillion naira fake drugs orders in Anambra. The National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control (NAFDAC) has recently undertaken significant enforcement actions to combat the proliferation of counterfeit and substandard medical products in Nigeria. On March 24, 2025, NAFDAC destroyed counterfeit, substandard and fake pharmaceutical products in Anambra State, underscoring its commitment to safeguarding public health. Earlier in February 2025, NAFDAC conducted extensive operations across major drug markets in Onitsha, Anambra State, Aba, Abia State, and Lagos State. These operations led to the seizure of fake and illicit drugs valued at over 1 trillion naira, marking one of the largest enforcement actions in the agency's history. The confiscated items included counterfeit, expired, unregistered medical products such as antiretroviral drugs and condoms donated by international organizations like USAID and UNFPA, which were found in sealed markets. The enforcement operations initiated on February 9, 2025 involved approximately 1,100 security operatives, including personnel from the military, police, and the Department of State Services (DSS). Security forces condoned off markets in Ariaria and Izuku, Aba, Bridgehead, Onitsha, and Idumota, Lagos, to prevent traders from smuggling out illicit products. During these operations, over 7,000 shops were screened, resulting in 40 arrests. A database of offenders and their shop has been compiled for prosecution. NAFDAC Director General Professor Mojisola Adeyeye has been vocal about the grave risk posed by counterfeit drugs to public health and national security. She highlighted that the sheer volume of seized narcotics, including substances like tramadol, rohypnol, nitrazepam, and diazepam, is sufficient to destabilize national security. Professor Adeyeye also disclosed that NAFDAC officials have faced significant threats, including attempted kidnappings and death threats, due to their intensified efforts against counterfeit drug cartels. In light of these challenges, Professor Adeyeye has called on the National Assembly to amend existing laws to impose harsher penalties on individuals involved in the counterfeit drug trades, including life imprisonment and the death penalty. She emphasized that many lives have been lost due to activities of fake drug peddlers, necessitating more stringent punitive measures to deter such crimes. These recent actions by NAFDAC reflect a continued commitment to combating counterfeit drugs in Nigeria, building upon the legacy of former NAFDAC Director General, the late Professor Dora Akunyili, who was renowned for relentless fight against fake drugs and faced numerous threats during her tenure. Follow for more. March 21st, 2025.